Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Luke I'm on TV. Today I thought I'd do a video for a book review. This book that I recently read, which is Dark World by Zak Bagans and Kelly Crigger. I actually kind of found this book by accident, sort of. I was with my girlfriend. We were Christmas shopping back in December, and we were at Barnes and Noble, and we were just kind of looking and checking out books. And I came across his other book, which is called I Am Haunted. I actually didn't know that Zak Bagans had written a book, so I thought that was pretty interesting. And so I kind of took note of it. I didn't have the money at that particular time to buy the book, but I plan to go back in the next week or two to go pick it up. And what actually happened, it was kind of a funny accident, is for Christmas, somebody actually even gave me a Barnes & Noble gift card. They didn't even know that, I had seen this book and was very interested in it. And so anyway, I got this gift card, and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I'm going to go back and get that book. So I actually ended up going to a different Barnes & Noble store. And when I went to that store, I actually discovered this book, Dark World. Like I said, originally I was gonna pick up I Am Haunted, and I picked up this book. It's because it said that this one is actually his first one. So this is his first book, and it was a New York Times bestseller. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll pick up this one since it's the first one. So I do have plans to pick up this second one too, I Am Haunted, the one that I originally wanted, but I didn't know that he had written two books, so I decided to pick up this one first, and then maybe I'll pick up the other one eventually. I haven't picked it up yet, so we'll see how that goes. But anyway, so today I'm going to do a review for this book. Zak Bagans is the host, lead investigator, and co-creator of the television show Ghost Adventures. It is now 2016, and Ghost Adventures is currently in its 12th season on the Travel Channel. Very cool show. One of my favorite shows, definitely. I used to really enjoy the show Ghost Hunters that was on the Sci-Fi Channel, but that kind of changed over time. And I used to be connected to a lot of those people on. I think it was Facebook, I believe. Well, I was going to say MySpace, but I think that was a little too long ago. But I was connected to a lot of those people on Facebook, and my personal take on that was, I think of what happened with the Ghost Hunters crew is they kind of got a little too wrapped up in the celebrity status of that. Like, I think after a while, when they saw many people wanted to be friends with them on Facebook and stay connected, and then they started creating all these events and stuff like, hey, come meet us and we'll sign autographs and all this and that. And that's fine and everything, but then they actually started to charge people to go along on investigations with them. And at that point, that's when I really lost interest, and I had a change of heart as far as that show is concerned. I'm like, I don't know about this anymore. I think they're kind of, maybe getting a little too big as of a head or something. Like, they're just too much of a celebrity status thing they're going on. Like, they're not real anymore. They're kind of just taking advantage, and just in a way, and they're trying to make money. And I just was against that. But anyway, so I ended up finding Ghost Adventures not too long after that, and I really like the show. I like Zak Bagans' take on the whole paranormal investigating. His how he would actually try to sometimes provoke spirits, I thought was pretty cool. He doesn't do that in every episode, by the way. He will do that on occasion, but usually if there's said to be maybe like friendly ghosts, or they're not really trying to hurt anybody, then he doesn't typically try to provoke those spirits, and doesn't try to like swear at those spirits to get them to come out. And he only really does that when the spirits are maybe harming people, scaring people, that kind of thing. Then he usually he tries to provoke them, and sometimes it works. If you've watched enough of the episodes of the show, you know that sometimes it does seem to work. Anyway, now whatever your personal opinion on this show, Ghost Adventures, or any other paranormal television show, my personal belief is you may be able to fake evidence, but you can't actually fake being there. yeah, you just really can't, because these are known to be haunted locations at a lot of these places that they go and they visit and they investigate. That you can't fake being there. You know, these places are known to be haunted, and you are going into these locations with you know, audio video recorders, you know, cameras, and you know, EMF detectors and thermal imaging things and all kinds of stuff. You can't fake that. You know, I mean, you, like, again, you could fake the evidence later, but I mean, when you go into these known locations and you've got the proper equipment, that you are probably eventually going to capture something. So, you know, maybe some element of the show is fake, or other shows, maybe a lot of that is fake too. But again, you can't fake at least 100% of it, because you're gonna eventually you're gonna capture something. That's my personal opinion on it. You know, you're going into the dark with these pieces of equipment, and something is gonna happen at least eventually. You know, that's my personal belief. So anyway, so in this book, what Zak really does is he I was kind of hoping he was going to talk more about his own personal experiences and things outside of the show, but that's actually not the case. What he does in most of this book is he kind of just reiterates a lot of the stuff that he talks about on the show. He actually kind of revisits a lot of the things that happened during those episodes. A lot of places that he talks about are the Goldfield Hotel, the Preston Castle, Villisca Axe Murder House, Poveglia Island, Hillview Manor, Ancient Ram Inn, Essex County Hospital, Moundsville Penitentiary, Sloss Furnace, Edinburgh Vaults, and Bobby Mackey's Music World. Those are some of his most popular episodes if you've been a long-time watcher of the show. So he does talk quite a bit about those episodes. Now, one thing that he points out that's kind of interesting, that regarding that, you know, is that the television show really is like an hour long, and you know, once you factor in all the commercials, that the show is really only at its base about a good solid 40 minutes, and maybe, and even less of that would be time that they're actually investigating. You're probably only getting a good 20 solid minutes of investigating during that whole 1 hour episode. So with that being said, he does mention that in the book, and he talks about that's why he felt like he almost kind of needed to write the book, just so he could kind of you know, talk more in depth about some of those things that happened to him. And also, using these locations, he uses it to just talk about his own personal theories on the paranormal world and why things happen and how they happened. And you know, he talks a lot about theory in this book. And then he'll use these past experiences to try and prove these theories. So if you're new to ghost hunting, I think this is actually a really good book for you to start with, because of he does have a lot of experience, and he does you know, talk about the basics of ghost hunting, and then talks about popular theory, and again uses his own experience to try and prove some of these theories. So that is a really good point of the book. It's a good selling point, I think, is if you're new to Ghost Adventures, that you're going to probably really like this book. However, if you are a seasoned paranormal investigator, or if you've read a lot about investigating, you're not going to really learn too much new from this book. You know, it's not really that kind of book. It's just him talking about a lot of the things that have happened to him. But unfortunately, it's mostly just things that you've seen on the show. So if you are a long-time watcher, again, you're not going to learn too much new stuff as far as that is concerned. If you've been watching enough of the episodes, you're already going to know what he's talking about when he brings up these things. But every once in a while, he does talk about something new, something we didn't know. One part of the book, he actually talks about that they actually did go back to a second, they went back a second time to Bobby Mackey's Music World without the help of the Travel Channel. So him and a group of friends supposedly went back there to kind of conduct their own investigation. And a couple things that happened that were pretty interesting was when they were recording certain like EVP sessions or whatever, that they would actually start to play back some of the audio, and they would discover some pretty amazing things. Like one thing that started happening was they would play back the audio, and they heard this girl say "Mommy, help" in recording, and this struck a nerve with one of the women that was there investigating, because it was the sound of her daughter saying "Mommy, help." And now, had her daughter actually been deceased, you can imagine that that would be pretty disturbing. But what was even more disturbing is that her daughter was very much alive. So that really disturbed her. So she got very upset. She broke away from the group and then called home immediately to make sure that her daughter was okay, which apparently she was. But I mean, that would be pretty scary to hear, as you could probably imagine. And then also another thing that happened was Zak started to hear in the audio a voice referring to Zak as Z-Man. And Zak points out that when he was a kid, his dad used to refer to him as Z-Man, and that he hadn't actually heard that name being used in many years. So that was pretty significant. You know, I mean, if that's a true story of what actually happened, that's pretty significant. That that spirits or demons, I guess you could probably say that probably were more demons. If you're familiar with Bobby Mackey's world, if you've seen the show, that you'd probably know that there's a lot of, it seems to be really evil stuff going on. And my theory on that is anytime somebody's really being hurt or scared, you're getting threatening voices. That's usually demonic. You're not gonna, that's not gonna be some kind of friendly ghost, and it's gonna be demons that usually reside in those kinds of locations. That's my personal opinion. I think that seems to be his personal opinion too, from what I've gathered from reading this book or seeing the show. That when he talks about Bobby Mackey's and on the effect that it's had on him and his other team members, that it seems to have had a very negative effect. So I believe that that's very demonic in nature. That's something you do not want to play with. Anyway, so that's one interesting thing that happens. Another one theory that he talks about that I was actually not familiar with, but prior to reading this book, was what they call stone tape theory. And the theory is that supposedly that a lot of energies and maybe even voices could be stored within certain materials. That supposedly the world is, the earth is comprised of mostly iron and nickel, and that iron oxide is actually the main component of audio tapes. So you could see that it's possibly feasible how maybe a voice could be captured within that element. However, as Zak points out in the book, though, that in order for these things to theoretically be played or heard, or felt even, I guess, is that you would need some sort of like a playback method, like a playhead if you were using audio tapes. You'd need some kind of like a playback method. But so that's one interesting thing. But then as he also counters that, he says, well, there is a possibility that maybe an outside element, like let's just say the weather, you say the element of weather plays into account, that maybe because that's that's another theory that he has, that he's a big believer in weather and how it plays into the paranormal world, and how things may or may not happen according to certain weather, whether it be maybe it's hot or cold, or humid, or barometric pressure, certain things that his theory is that when all these things kind of come together, that it's possible that that's what stirs up the activity. Kind of like this long held theory where people talk about where on a full moon people get crazy or they freak out. Which I personally, I've never been a big believer in that, but I guess it's possible. Anything is possible. I mean, they always say the truth is stranger than fiction, but it's possible. But again, I don't personally believe that just because it's a full moon that things are going to be crazy. But anyway, that's just his theory, and so he kind of counters that, saying, well, maybe there's not necessarily an actual playback head to play back the iron oxide or whatever, but there's the elements, and there's the elements in the air, that there's a feeling that comes along with that. You know, it's kind of like there's another theory in the paranormal world that a lot of paranormal things, places tend to be haunted when they're like when there's a building that's built over limestone. You know, supposedly there's these energies that can be stored within those rocks or materials, and so that's another theory regarding that. But again, that's anyway. The stone tape theory method is something I was not familiar with, so that I actually found pretty interesting. I'm like, well, you know, I guess I never really thought about that, you know, so that was pretty cool. Some criticisms on the book. Zach does frequently repeat himself in the book. He talks a lot about how he believes that, you know, as he's done more and more investigations, you know, at this point he's done like I think like hundreds of investigations or whatever, that he keeps saying in the book that the more and more investigations he's done, that he's become more sensitive to the spirit world, which yeah, I guess that would kind of make sense, but you know, he just repeats himself like almost every chapter he brings it up. You know, I think you know he's using it as to try and prove his point. You know, he's kind of making that argument like this is why I believe this, and this is why I think this happens because you know I've become more sensitive and you know what I mean, or you know what I mean. It just he just keeps repeating himself throughout the whole book. He does it many times, so it's like after a while, it's like, okay, come on, it's like okay, man, we get it. You know, you're becoming more sensitive. We get it. You know, so he just repeats himself. Another criticism is one that I've had regarding Zach watching the show is that he a lot of times he's very quick to jump and make assumptions about things. He'll take something that supposedly happened, like let's say they go to a location and there's this spirit that's named Bill. And it's like, well, there was this guy named Bill, and you know, he supposedly killed himself, you know, up on the top floor and everything. So he would go when they're doing this investigation. As soon as they hear something or they feel something, I feel like a lot of times he just automatically assumes that this is Bill. You know what I mean? That he'll do it many times. He'll in the show, and he'll sometimes he almost even call him out, Bill, Bill. You know, is that you, Bill? You know, and you know it's one thing to ask questions, but a lot of times I do feel like he many times makes assumptions. He jumps to conclusions very quickly. He does that on the show, and he seems to do that a lot in this book too. He does that a lot, and it's kind of a pet peeve of mine. But at the same time, at least he's trying to come up with answers or solutions. You know, he's you know what I mean? Like many times if somebody were to ask me a lot of these questions, say, you know, do you believe in this or do you believe in that? I would just a lot of times I'd probably just say yes or no. And you know, a lot of times he might say yes or he might say no, and he'll drop his conclusions. Why? But you know, when you're dealing in the unknown field and you're on a television show and you're writing books, people are gonna really follow you. And I just my personal feeling is a lot of times I think it's best to just leave a lot of it unknown and just say, well, I'm not particularly sure. You know, I'm not you know, but he seems to say like yes or no, and that's fine. I mean, I think we're all like that a little bit. But again, I feel like someone in his position should be a little bit more careful about sometimes just jumping to conclusions and saying with certainty yes or no regarding certain things. I think a lot of times it's just best to leave it unknown. So anyway, that's mostly been my account of this book. I really enjoyed reading this book. All in all, I think it was pretty well written. It's written by Zak Bagans and Kelly Crigger. I wasn't familiar with Kelly Crigger, but I guess he's not really a paranormal investigator, although he has been on investigations, I believe, with Zach. And he has written several books and many internet articles. So I'm guessing that Zach wrote this book with the help of him. And yeah, I think it is pretty well written book. It seems to flow well. The chapters kind of flow well and make sense. And towards the end of the book, he kind of finishes off with the future of paranormal investigating. Where is it going? And one thing that he brings up is that he hopes that maybe eventually that all paranormals in a way can kind of come together, and then maybe form some sort of like a database where people can collect pieces of pictures and audio recordings and video recordings and just all evidence that they gathered as a means to have like a real research center in a way, trying to make it more of like a legit scientific field, I guess you could say, because a lot of people don't really take too much credence in this whole field. They don't really believe a lot of it is real. They don't take it seriously, so it's kind of a joke to a lot of people. And that's one thing I like and admire about Zak is his dedication. He, obviously, like I said, they're on their Ghost Adventures is currently on its 12th season, so he's pretty serious about this. He's gonna be in it probably for either for life or just for a long time. He's gonna do this for a long time, and if he's not doing paranormal television shows, he might probably just keep writing books or just being a face in the field, being somebody who's always going to be around. I think that's going to be the case. I think he's going to be someone who sticks around. He does, no matter what you think about him, whether you like him or you don't like him or you take him seriously or don't take him seriously, you at least have to admire his dedication, that he is dedicated to this field, and that, there is a certain respect that comes with that, I think. So anyway, I enjoyed reading this book. There are a few things, like I said, I was a little, like I said regarding him, some of the things that he jumps to conclusions and things of that nature. But all in all, I think it's a pretty good book. It's a good intro point. I hope to maybe pick up his second book, I Am Haunted, maybe within the next week or two. I don't know if I will do a review on that book. But I do probably plan to read that, and I'm kind of hoping that it's a little more personal. I hope he talks a little bit more about his life outside of Ghost Adventures, because a lot of, again, when you read a lot of this book, he's just really just going back to the investigations and talking all about it. And if you've seen the episodes, you already know what happened or what evidence they caught and stuff like that. So anyway, so this has been my video for the book review of Dark World by Zak Bagans and Kelly Crigger. If you enjoyed what you watched, please make sure to like, comment, or subscribe, and I'll see you next time.